good video footage of that gunman. They also, investigators say, believe they have recovered the gun that was used in the shooting. And so joining us live now to talk about this investigation is James Copenhaver, who is a former sheriff's detective and investigator. And James, we appreciate you joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Good to be with you, Garrett.
Jamie, are you surprised at all that they have not, that investigators have not been able to track down this gunman yet?
I am, and I'm not. And let me qualify as to my answer. We know that FBI recovered the weapon. They've recovered a palm print. Now, we don't know if it was from the weapon or the building that he climbed up and down from, but I think the FBI certainly knows a lot more than what they're telling the public, obviously for the integrity of the investigation and not to potentially make that suspect run further or hide further than what he's already ran.
Yeah, one of the things is they said they have really good video surveillance that shows this suspect, but they're not releasing it right now. Why would they withhold that?
Well, number one, I would tend to believe that number one, there's no threat to the community based on the FBI is not releasing that information or that photograph or the video. But number two, they may be doing some digital work in the background to try to identify him to get a clear ID as to who this person is. We heard the presser earlier today, and they said the video was amazing in terms of the quality of the video. So they said they had an excellent screenshot of the shooter. So I can assure you that Quantico is busy in overtime trying to develop facial recognition and et cetera to identify that suspect if they don't already have him identified.
One of the other things they said, so you said if they don't already have him identified, do you think they may be farther along in this than they're letting on to the public?
I mean, I would certainly be guessing, Garrett, but my thought process based on everything they have up to date that they've released publicly, right? We don't know what they have that they haven't released. I would tend to believe through cell phone data, metadata, and other forensic data that they've collected, they probably have a pretty good idea as to who the shooter's identity is. But it's just a guess. The FBI sounded very confident in the evidence that they've collected thus far, sharing it with the public. So I would tend to guess they're a lot further along than what they're releasing.
They also talked about a high-powered bolt-action rifle that was recovered in the woods nearby. I want to ask you a couple things about that. And first of all, what that might tell us, because we know this was a shot that was taken from quite a ways away.
Yeah, I mean, a bolt action would be it would be synonymous with a 308 caliber, a hunting rifle, a long range weapon, right? I'm hearing anywhere from 170 to 200 yards away that shot was taken. We've seen the graphics of where the building is as relation to where Charlie Kirk was sitting. So it was a very long shot. I will tell you, just as a former hunter and former law enforcement official, that was a very well placed shot, in my opinion, because he hit the target, right? So, what I would caution people, I'm hearing on social media that it was a professional hit, that maybe foreign actor states are involved. We need to hold back on that because if you're an avid hunter and you're out practicing and you have the right equipment, you certainly could make that shot from 200 yards.
What will investigators be doing, or what have they been doing specifically with that weapon and trying to learn from it?
I mean, 101 police work, you're going to go run the serial number of the firearm with ATF and find out the history of that weapon. We've learned in past scenarios, such as Butler, PA, for the now current president of the United States, that weapon was traced back to the family of the shooter. So let's hope that the ATF puts their work into progress. They trace the firearm because they're very stringent on firearms. But here's the caveat to that, Garrett. If that gun was stolen or if it was bought illegally, it may not be traced back to the actual shooter for Charlie Kirk. So that would be one phase of it. What I'm more keen on are the fingerprints or the palm print in this case that they were able to recover. Prints are left everywhere. So there's a good chance that they're possibly going to identify the shooter based on that palm print if that palm print is of good quality.
We know that From what investigators said today, they don't believe, with this being a targeted attack, they certainly don't believe anyone else, in that community is in danger. But still, kind of concerning to think about this gunman committing such a brazen and heinous act to still be out there, coming up on 24 hours.
Here's a telltale sign, and the telegraph by the FBI tells me that they have a pretty good idea who the shooter is. They certainly have a good photograph or video of the shooter. They're not releasing that photograph or video to the public, which kind of instills to me they've got a handle on it, because the first thing you were thinking was, are they a threat in the community? And I would say that if there is a current threat to the community and they had no clue as to who the shooter is, they would release some type of composite to be on the lookout for, right? And we're not seeing that. So that kind of telegraphs to me they know a lot more than what they're releasing. And obviously they came out this morning, so there's no threat to the community. So that's kind of a telegraph by the FBI if you listen to what they said.
Well, and we know a couple of persons of interest had initially kind of been taken into custody and then released. What is that process like? In the aftermath of something like this, I would imagine there's chaos to begin with, a scramble. Second of all, and just kind of walk me through, what that process would be like, and pulling in those persons of interest and questioning them, only to kind of realize, well, they weren't the ones we were looking for after all.
I mean, you have a crowd of 3,000 people at this event, and something stood out to either a eyewitness or one of the security apparatuses that were on scene that made them target both of these individuals. So it could be an eyewitness, it could be someone from the security team from Charlie Kirk's team, or it could have been one of the law enforcement officers that saw something that just didn't look right. And keep in mind, this is an active shooter situation, so you run towards the target. So if there's something that doesn't look right, or that subject happened to look like a suspect or the shooter, you're certainly going to take action to stop any further damage, right? And then, obviously you go through and you vet that person out once they have him detained. And we saw that in both cases. They detained both individuals, vetted them out through the process of whatever that process is, and couldn't tie them to the shooting. So they have been, maybe there were some gunshot residue tests that were taken of their hands, perhaps cell phone video footage that they saw that cleared these two individuals, but they would have to detain anyone that's a suspect in that shooting.
We know Charlie Kirk. This was the first stop of his new tour, where he has been doing this for years, going around to a lot of college campuses and other places, holding debates like this and events. And sometimes it does bring a controversy, sometimes a pushback and protesters and that kind of thing. Can you kind of walk us through what it would be like trying to ensure security for something like this, and the difficulties too with this one being outdoors in what appears to be like an amphitheater? And I'm just curious, some of your thoughts on that, and what all would go into that.
Moving forward, I don't want to sit here and be a Monday morning quarterback and chastise anyone for lack of security, but I think they were a lack of security. And I think if we learn anything from the Butler, PA shooting and this shooting, is these security officials that are providing security details for these dignitaries, they have got to do better. The outside arenas, we remember that when former President Trump was running for president, they moved those rallies to indoors. The Secret Service just didn't feel confident outdoors. So, perhaps maybe these private individuals that are holding these rallies, they need to look at indoor facilities and venues rather than the outdoor setting, because there are buildings everywhere, Garrett. I don't know this 100%, but I'm being told that they were an 8-member security team for Charlie Kirk on the private side, and they had about 12 police officers from the local sheriff's office. For 3,000 people, that's just not enough security, in my opinion.
You talked about some of the other political violence that we've seen. We certainly know the political temperature is pretty hot right now, rising political tensions. With that being said, do you think we will see more precautions taken, more steps, like you said, maybe fewer outdoor events? What do you think we will see from this, or should see from this, as we unfortunately continue to see more and more events, and sadly, it seems more frequently.
I was asked that question this morning on a radio show I did, and I hate to throw up my hands and say I don't know, but I don't know. But here's what I do know, and you touched on it. We have got to be smarter. The security apparatus have got to be smarter and hardening up these soft targets, as we've seen in the Charlie Kirk event. The president was chastised before, while he was running for president, for moving those rallies indoor. That was of the urging of the United States Secret Service because they couldn't cover the outdoor events. So I think they need to double up on the security. I'm also going to put a little bit on the Secret Service for these high profile rallies. We need to have our local fusion centers more involved with incoming intelligence and threat assessments leading up to those events. Because, Garrett, you can go on social media right now and you're going to find the rhetoric on both sides, and someone's always chatting, but someone needs to track that rhetoric and actually vet it out, whether it poses a threat or it doesn't pose a threat, before these events are held. It's a lot of work and they're understaffed, but we've got to do something to harden up these targets.
Well, and probably an increasingly blurred line when it comes to trying to parse that out as well.
I mean, it is. The men and women that are housed in these fusion units throughout the U.S., it's an intelligence gathering apparatus, right? Were they? We don't know. It's too early in the investigation, but are we going to find out this shooter also had a ledger of events? Did he cry out on social media? Did he cry out to family or friends? We don't know that yet, but we've certainly seen that in the past. But it comes right back down to you and I and the citizens. If you see something that doesn't look right on an individual, stop worrying about making the call. Step up and make the call, because you may save one of these shootings. We just don't know, right? So if you see something, say something, but take action as well. Call the authorities.
Back to the investigation here, and what will you be looking for to see as hopefully the walls will start closing in on whoever this gunman was. But what's going to be happening? Just kind of take us through the next few hours. What's going to be happening, and what we should be watching for as we await some news.
Well, I can assure you the analysts at Quantica are working overtime with metadata. They're working with cell phone data. Everyone has a cell phone. So unfortunately, that takes time to crunch the numbers to figure out, okay, does this signal from the cell phone, does that look suspicious? Then you have to run that person down to either clear or vet that person out, right? Forensics is going to be huge in this case. Like I said, the palm print, it fits of quality use. There's a good chance, I would say over a 99% chance, your suspect's going to be identified through that palm print. And then, they're going to trace that palm print to the individual to the video, and it becomes then a manhunt. So, like I said earlier, I think they have a good grasp on who the shooter is, and hopefully they're surrounding him with a wall, and maybe even surveilling a person of interest in this case would be my best hope.
All right, James Copenhaver, former sheriff's detective and investigator,